Welcome to US Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Senate poised to act on compromise to avert government shutdown. Donald Trump defrauded banks for years, New York civil case rules. Parkland father urges media to stop attacking Biden's age. Why so many sport chiefs in China have come under corruption clouds. Senate announces short-term deal to avert government shutdown, but future in House unclear. Senate poised to act on compromise to avert government shutdown. The Independent. U.S. senators have agreed to advance a compromise measure that would prevent the government from running out of funds on Saturday, continuing operations at current levels for the next month and a half. The Senate will take the first procedural vote on moving the legislation, known as a continuing resolution, through the upper chamber later on Tuesday evening, with the Democratic-controlled House still struggling to pass any measures to fund the government. Donald Trump defrauded banks for years, New York civil case rules. ABC. A judge has ruled that former U.S. President Donald Trump committed fraud while building his real estate empire, according to a civil lawsuit filed by New York Attorney General Letitia James. The lawsuit accuses Trump of illegally inflating his assets and net worth to obtain better loan terms and insurance. The judge ruled that Trump and his family business were liable for the fraud. Trump has pleaded not guilty to multiple charges, including trying to overturn the 2020 election and defamation. A trial is scheduled for October 2, but Trump has sued to delay it. Parkland father urges media to stop attacking Biden's age. The Independent. Fred Guttenberg, a gun safety activist and father of a victim of the 2018 Parkland school shooting, has called on the media to focus on President Joe Biden's policies rather than his health and age. Guttenberg shared his recent experience of health issues, which he said caused him to walk like an older person. He urged the media to get over discussions about Biden's health and instead concentrate on what he does for Americans and democracy. Guttenberg's daughter, Jamie Guttenberg, was one of the 17 people killed in the Parkland shooting. Why so many sport chiefs in China have come under corruption clouds. South China Morning Post. China's anti-corruption campaign has recently targeted high-ranking officials in the country's sports industry. The crackdown has resulted in the arrests and prosecutions of several prominent figures in sports administration, including heads of national sports associations and senior officials in the Chinese Football Association. This is not the first time that China's sports industry has faced corruption allegations, with similar arrests taking place in 2014. Experts believe that the centralized and government-controlled nature of China's sports system, as well as the focus on achieving international sporting success, have contributed to the corruption issues. Despite some reforms aimed at improving transparency, corruption continues to be a problem in the industry. There are two approaches to combating corruption in China's sports system: self-regulation within the industry and external supervision by government authorities. However, both approaches have their limitations and have not been entirely successful in curbing corruption. Experts argue that a restructuring of the power structure within the sports system is necessary to address the root causes of corruption. Additionally, establishing permanent checks and balances and implementing preventive mechanisms are seen as crucial steps in preventing corruption in the future. The recent crackdown on corruption in China's sports industry is seen as a response to the end of an economic cycle, as the country's broader economy is struggling. The boom in sports investment, particularly in football, has led to increased corruption, and the current anti-corruption campaign aims to recover some of the embezzled profits. However, experts predict that without a new boom in sports investment, corruption may become less rampant, providing an opportunity to strengthen anti-corruption governance mechanisms and regulations. Senate announces short-term deal to avert government shutdown, but future in House unclear. Washington Post. Senate Democrats and Republicans announced a short-term funding deal Tuesday night that would fund the government for 6 weeks, while including additional funding for Ukraine and domestic disaster relief. The deal, reached days before the government would shut down on Saturday, would still need to overcome several procedural hurdles before full Senate approval. It would then move to the House, where its future is uncertain. The short-term deal, called a continuing resolution, allocates $4.49 billion for the Defense Department's effort in Ukraine, alongside $1.65 billion in additional funding for the war-torn country, which will remain available until September 30, 2025. Combined, the more than $6 billion in funds adds up to far less than the White House's request for $20.6 billion in Ukraine funding. Unusual orders sow confusion in case over Biden's social media contacts. Reuters. A court order that restricts the Biden administration's ability to encourage social media companies to remove content remains on hold after a series of unusual orders by the Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. The confusion arose after the court partly reversed a lower court's injunction against the administration, easing restrictions but upholding the finding that the administration's actions violated free speech rights. The Biden administration has argued that it did nothing illegal and was seeking to combat online misinformation. The Fifth Circuit has since withdrawn its mandate and granted a rehearing of the case. India will look into any specific info on Sikh separatist killing in Canada. Nikkei Asia. India has told Canada that it is open to investigating any specific or relevant information it provides on the killing of Sikh separatist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Last week, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau claimed that Ottawa had credible intelligence linking Indian agents to the murder, which prompted an angry response from India. In response to the allegations, Indian Foreign Minister Subrahmanyam Jaishankar stated that India had informed Canada that the government of India does not support such actions and that it is willing to look into any specific information provided. India has suspended new visas for Canadians and asked Ottawa to reduce its diplomatic presence in the country. The US and other allies of Canada have expressed concern over the allegations and urged India to cooperate with the investigation. What the GOP candidates have said about strikes and unions. The Independent. Republican presidential candidates are increasingly distancing themselves from unions as they vie for the party's nomination for the 2024 election. The shift reflects the changing demographics of the party's base, with college graduates increasingly leaning towards the Democrats, while more socially conservative, working-class voters move towards the GOP. Notably, even invoking the name of Ronald Reagan, a former Republican president revered by the party, now risks alienating some voters. The divide between the Republican Party and unions is particularly stark in relation to the United Auto Workers (UAW) strike against the Big Three automakers. South Carolina Senator Tim Scott was criticized by the UAW after suggesting that striking workers should be fired, citing Ronald Reagan's decision to fire striking air traffic controllers in 1981. Other candidates such as Nikki Haley and Vivek Ramaswamy have also been vocal in their criticism of unions and have sought to undermine their power. This anti-union stance is a shift from the position of past Republican presidents. In 1952, Dwight Eisenhower stated that unions had a secure place in American industrial life, while even more recent Republican presidents such as George W. Bush and Donald Trump have sought to court the support of unions, particularly in the manufacturing sector. However, the changing demographics of the Republican Party's voter base, coupled with a broader shift towards anti-union sentiment within the party, has led to a more hostile stance towards unions among 2024 presidential candidates. The GOP's defenses of Bob Menendez, and what they ignore. Washington Post. As we noted last week, the U.S. Department of Justice has launched fresh legal proceedings against Senator Robert Menendez of New Jersey, charging him with bribery. Despite the fact Menendez has denied any wrongdoing and vowed to fight the charges, a growing number of Democrats have called on him to resign. In response, Republicans have rallied round the New Jersey senator, citing the troubling record of the Justice Department in such cases as the failed prosecution of former Republican Senator Ted Stevens of Alaska. The Washington Post argues the party's backing for Menendez is self-serving, but also clarifying. Democrats have accused Menendez of betraying the public trust by accepting gifts from a wealthy donor, but Republicans are seeking to shift the focus to the Justice Department, thereby emphasizing the distinction between legal guilt and loss of public trust. This would seem to be in line with the approach adopted by the party with regard to President Trump. Just about all the leading Republican candidates in 2016 indicated they would continue to support Trump even if he were to be convicted of a crime. Trump committed fraud by inflating real estate value, New York judge rules. Financial Times. A New York state judge has ruled that former President Donald Trump, his sons, and his business organization are liable for fraud in a case brought by the New York Attorney General. The lawsuit alleges that Trump and his businesses inflated the value of properties and assets by over $2 billion in order to obtain favorable loans. The judge stated that a jury would determine whether the defendants are also liable for issuing false financial statements and insurance fraud. The ruling comes as Trump faces multiple legal challenges and criminal indictments. The Attorney General is seeking $250 million in damages and to bar the defendants from acting as officers or directors of corporations in the state. The judge also ordered the dissolution of several of Trump's New York businesses and fined the Trump lawyers. The defendants have not yet commented on the ruling. Defendant in Michigan fake elector case seeks dismissal of charges over Attorney General's comments. Associated Press. One of the 16 Michigan Republicans accused of participating in a fake elector scheme has filed a motion to dismiss charges. The state attorney general said the group had been brainwashed and truly believed that former President Donald Trump won the 2020 election. The defendants are facing criminal charges, including forgery and conspiracy to commit election forgery, for signing a document falsely stating that they were Michigan's duly elected and qualified electors. President Joe Biden won the state by nearly 155,000 votes, and Michigan is one of 7 states where false electoral college certificates were submitted declaring Trump the winner. Defendant in Michigan fake elector case seeks dismissal of charges over Attorney General's comments. The Independent. One of the 16 Michigan Republicans accused of participating in a fake elector scheme has filed a motion to dismiss charges after the state attorney general said the group had been brainwashed and genuinely believed that former President Donald Trump won the 2020 election. The 16 individuals are facing 8 criminal charges, including forgery and conspiracy to commit election forgery. They are accused of signing a document falsely stating that they were Michigan's duly elected and qualified electors after the 2020 election. President Joe Biden won the state by nearly 155,000 votes, and Michigan is one of 7 states where false electoral college certificates were submitted declaring Trump the winner. The accused individuals have all pleaded not guilty, and their attorneys argue that the charges should be dismissed based on the Attorney General's comments. First FT, China TV presenter linked to ex-minister had surrogate child in U.S. Financial Times. Fu Xiaotian, a high-profile Chinese television presenter and former partner of China's ex-foreign minister Qin Gang, has had a child via surrogate in the U.S., according to anonymous sources cited by the Financial Times. Surrogacy is illegal in China. Chinese authorities are investigating the relationship between Qin and Fu. The former foreign minister disappeared in June, a month before he was ousted. China's foreign ministry website states that Qin is married with a son. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your resident observer from the 6th dimension. Today, we have a mix of political and social news from around the world. Let's dive in. First, the U.S. Senate is working on a compromise to prevent a government shutdown. It seems like they might just avoid it this time. But let's be honest, government shutdowns have become a bit of a recurring theme in U.S. politics. It's like that one friend who always shows up late to parties. Come on, guys, let's get it together. In other news, a New York judge has ruled that former President Donald Trump committed fraud while building his real estate empire. I mean, is anyone really surprised? It's like finding out that your favorite reality TV show is scripted. Oh wait, that's exactly what happened. Moving on. A Parkland father is urging the media to stop attacking President Joe Biden's age. Look, I get it. We all age, even presidents. But let's focus on what Biden is doing for the country instead of how he walks. I mean, have you seen how some of our favorite celebrities walk? It's not always graceful, but we still love them, right? Now let's talk about corruption in China's sports industry. It seems like every few years, we hear about corruption scandals in Chinese sports. Maybe they need to take a page out of their own book and start doping their athletes with integrity instead of performance-enhancing drugs. Just a thought. Moving on to the US, Republican presidential candidates are distancing themselves from unions. It's like they're playing a game of who can alienate more voters? But hey, at least they're consistent. They're not just anti-union, they're anti-everything that's not conservative. Way to go, guys. And finally, we have the case of Senator Robert Menendez. Republicans are rallying around him, citing the troubling record of the Justice Department. It's like they're saying, hey, if Trump can get away with it, so can Menendez. But let's not forget, 2 wrongs don't make a right. Or in this case, 16 wrongs don't make a right. Well, that's all the news for today, folks. Remember, stay informed, stay curious, and always question the status quo. Now it's your turn. What are your thoughts on these news stories? Do you have any burning questions for me? Let's hear it. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.